Winner gets the Mets on Sunday. In the American League, I mentioned the stars showing up. It wasn't Aaron Judge, but it was Giancarlo Stanton. Couple of RBIs, huge stolen base. Yankees beat the Royals 3-2 in that series. So the Yankees now, tonight, 7 o'clock on TBS, can punch their ticket. Kansas City needs a win to send it back to New York.
Yeah, and look, speaking of bullpens, the Yankees have gone 13 2/3. Their relievers have yet to give up a run in this series. And Aaron Judge, if you're a Yankees fan, you got to feel good. You're up 2-1. You know, Giancarlo did have the go-ahead home run last night, and he was really good with the 3 hits and a couple of RBIs. But Aaron Judge is 1 of 11 in this series with 1 infield single. That's it, and you're still up 2-1.
Yep. I went back, or I didn't. The folks at The Athletic did. He was 5 of 36 in the 2022 postseason, LT. In his career in the postseason, Aaron Judge has struck out 71 times in postseason play.
That's incredible. 71 times?
Yeah, like who is the basketball player in the NBA that always shows up for the playoff, whatever they call him, or
Paul George?
Yeah, playoff P?
Playoff, yeah. He's the opposite. Aaron Judge is the opposite of that. He doesn't show up in the postseason. 71 times he's gone whiffing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of Clayton Kershaw-esque.
Ooh.
You know, when you look at that.
I mean, be in that group.
You know, Aaron Judge is a Hall of Fame player. Clayton Kershaw is one of the best starting pitchers we've ever seen in our lifetime. But for whatever reason, when they get to the postseason, it just becomes a little more difficult.
He's had some random good series. I'm just looking at his breakout series, like back in 2018. He only had 3 at-bats, but he was 2 of 3 in the divisional. I mean, that year he was okay in the postseason. That's really the only good year he's had, though. 2018 and 2019, he had a couple of good series. Other than that, he's just been awful in every series. It's not like he has a good one, bad one, good one, bad one.
So it sets up elimination night in the American League for the teams that are ahead 2-1, or it's a push to a Game 5 coming up on Friday night if it ends up that way. Cleveland at Detroit, 5 o'clock on TNT. A Detroit win, and they don't have to go back to Cleveland. 7 o'clock TBS, Yankees and Royals. Royals hope to get a win to go back to New York.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Guardians got to, figure something out here. The Guardians have not scored a run in 20 straight innings.
Detroit's pitching's been that good,
That's
man.
the problem.
Well, the first time since the 1905 World Series, first 3 games of a series have been shutouts.
Yeah. I mean, the Mets have already advanced as a wild card. The Tigers look pretty good to do it. The Padres could do it over the Dodgers. I mean, anymore, man, this first-round bye just I don't think means anything to you. Do you guys?
Well, who got the buys this year?
Well, it was
4
the
buys,
Phillies
right?
who were gone.
At one point, we just had 1 buy. Now it's 2 guys.
It was the Phillies who were going. It's the Guardians who their back is against the wall. It was the Dodgers who are now in a 1 game for everything.
Yep.
And it was the Yankees who have a 2-1 lead.
Yep.
And, I mean, I just don't. There's a lot of discussion as to whether that buy hurts you more than it helps you, Lance. I don't know if you can just pin it on that.
Yeah, again, go back last year. We had the Rangers and the Diamondbacks.
The Rangers made it in on the last day.
Yeah, it's baseball. And again, I'm not going to be surprised if we have a Tigers-Mets World Series now.
That's the way hockey used to be, or still is, in the Stanley Cup. Team Mom Gina Korn.
Welcome into the Pennant Grace postseason edition. Our team is not in it, but we are still here because we are serving the Pennant Grace family.
I like that guitar intro,
I do
Lionel.
too.
That's crunchy, man.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Tyler is behind the glass along with Scott Forrester. We have Duke of Denim Reed Taylor here with us today to chat about his Dodgers. Going to give us a little preview, a little insight. Thank you for being here.
A little nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Just a tiny bit. We're used to that, though.
Check
Yeah,
Reed's nails. Is there much left on the okay.
No.
Yeah,
None.
I would say not.
We are going to kick things off addressing a little State of the Union, give you guys an update on scheduling for the postseason, and then we're going to jump into Phillies Mets. So today, ALDS, we've got Cleveland at Detroit at 6:08 p.m. Eastern, 5:08 Central. Yankees at Kansas City Royals, 8:08 Eastern, 7:08 Central. So that's what's on the docket today. And then Friday, we've got the Padres at the Dodgers.
Yeah. So TNT for that Cleveland-Detroit game. Detroit up 2-1 in that series. And then TBS for the Yankees and the Royals. And the Yankees leading that series 2-1.
It's been an interesting, little what's the word I'm looking for? Start to the postseason, you could say.
It's been a great postseason.
It has been.
Say that obviously as EG and I as Braves fans on the outside looking in, it has been really good baseball. It's been very entertaining. You had no sweeps. You had a really good start to that before the Mets really, put their foot on the gas, which we'll get to here in a second. But a really good start to this year's playoffs.
Well, and I thought the division series, it was the first time ever that every series was 1-1.
Right.
But, it started off with the Braves and Mets on that Monday playing the doubleheader.
Right.
That first game was a playoff, real atmosphere. So we should have known from that point on it was going to be a good one.
I feel like the wild card series are now almost a little boring compared to what we've seen over the last few days. And I love that, we aren't seeing sweeps. It makes for better baseball. But the problem is now with football, it's almost getting overshadowed in a lot of ways with the media because everyone's focused on football now instead of a really awesome postseason baseball.
Well, football is the sport of this country, and baseball and basketball, anything else will take a back seat to that. But I think those that know there's a lot of good baseball that has happened, and there's a lot more to come, especially looking forward to that NLCS, which is coming up. One of the teams that'll be in that NLCS we already know, and that's the New York Mets, our familiar rival. So we have a sixth inning Francisco Lindor grand slam. What a moment that was.
It seems like he is built for October, similar to a Bryce Harper. We saw it, unfortunately, against the Braves, but he has shown up, and it's proving why he is a very highly paid player because he delivers in moments that need to happen.
Well, yeah, and I think at one point, it kind of looked like, did the Mets overpay for him?
Yeah.
And then this freaking second half, he has torn it up. Outside of Shohei, he's got him and Ketel Marte will probably be top 3, top 4 MVP
for sure.
guys.
Yes.
But they're hot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he did not have a great start as a New York Met. That's for sure. His last 7 games, to your point about Francisco Lindor in the playoffs, his last 7 games, he's batting .385, 10 hits, 7 RBIs, and 3 home runs. It was his second career playoff grand slam, and the Mets' only second playoff grand slam. That's a franchise goes back to, I believe, the early 60s. So the Mets win the division series 4-1 over the Phillies. They await the winner of that Dodgers-Padres series. Reached out to Pennant Grace, Phillies correspondent.
We love him.
Travis Millsaps, who was at Game 1 in Philadelphia. Got some great insight from Trav that I wanted to share. Here's what he says. Phillies might be the more talented team, but I'd say the Mets proved they were the better baseball team. Great situational hitting. They worked counts, fouled balls off, and put the ball in play with 2 strikes. They worked up pitch counts and got the Phillies bullpen, which cracked. When it comes to offense, I heard someone on a podcast say it best. The Phillies are dangerous hitters, but with few exceptions, they are not great hitters. They never make adjustments going back to the last postseason, and they chased balls out of the zone. They did not move runners over and let pitchers off the hook with strikeouts.
You know who this sounds like?
Who's that sound like?
The Atlanta Braves.
To his point, I will say this because I see Braves Twitter talking about the layoff, and this proves Snit's point. It's a layoff that causes issues. The layoff had nothing to do with the Phillies hitting. It is who they were all season, especially the second half. Now, remember, the Phillies, when they played the Mets in London and beat the Mets in London, they were 45-19, one of the best records in baseball. Jesus. That was on June 8th. They have gone, since that time, they went 51-51. They played 500 ball the rest of the way. And then he also adds, as a caveat, I do think the layoff is bad for teams. But in the Phillies' case, I don't think it had an impact at all. They were swinging and missing at balls out of the zone all year, so nothing new. The Phillies, a more talented team, but he said the Mets, at least at this point in the season, a better baseball team.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Hard to argue that, right?
It's, the Mets are on fire. They're hitting the ball. Everybody, from 1 to 9, the only weak spot that I've seen in the actual, from the hitter standpoint, is Taylor that's playing, outfield for him. He's been a little weak, but outside of that, they've been pretty dang good.
So the only big output we saw from Philadelphia was Game 2. They scored 7 runs in Game 2. Game 1, 2 runs. Game 3, 2 runs. And then Game 4 yesterday, only 1 run. The Mets pitching held them to 2 runs or fewer in 3 of those 4 games. That is really strong.
And I think that the Phillies bullpen just imploded on itself. it was an issue, and I really didn't really foresee that happening. But also when you talk about, Travis's point, the hitting just was not up to the standard that it needed to be at. And like I said, it sounds a lot like the Atlanta Braves, right? It sounds a lot like what the Braves were dealing with. Now, Landmine Believer in the chat says, I hope MLB changes the format, expand to 8 teams, or make the division series 7 games. This is 3 years now of bye teams being at a severe disadvantage.
Well, I don't know if did y'all hear Smoltz last night on the Dodgers-Padres call?
No.
He basically said they got to change this series to 7 games.
Interesting.
I mean, he said there is a big, he believes there's a big factor in it, and thinks the way they can correct it if they're going to go with this format is to make this series 7 games.
So that would extend baseball longer, and the argument right now that I've been seeing is to shorten the season.
Yeah.
What are y'all's thoughts on that?
You could move it up a little bit to account for that, and I will give credit because we are oftentimes critical of Major League Baseball. Give credit; they got rid of the one game that everyone hated.
Yes,
and at least took that to a best of 3.
Yeah.
And so the thing for me is, I don't think you can go from a best of 3 to a best of 7. That's a big jump. I think you'd probably have to end up moving that wild card to 5 and then going to divisional round at 7.
And that's going to extend it.
It really is. And so that's kind of a problem. Now, I guess I say that's not a hard and fast rule. That's just how it feels to me. Maybe you can go from best of 3 to best of 7.
So I'm curious, what would be both of your ideal playoff scenarios? It can be changed next season.
Yeah.
What would it be?
I really don't. I mean, I do, like, there is something to that. Last year we saw the Braves and Dodgers. Mm-hmm. I mean, Dodgers got swept. I mean, it wasn't even, they didn't play in any game, really. So I do think something needs to change. I like the 7 games, but I don't think you can go 5 games and 7 games because of
how long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really don't.
I think other things would have to be changed to account for changing the format more than you already have. So we'll see. A little bit real quick to tie up on the Phillies, a little who's hot and who's not. Obviously, we talked about Lindor is as hot as they come. Jose Iglesias, second baseman, batting 3. This is in the last 7 games, batting .357 with 10 hits.
Speaking of which, he was out of the majors for a year and a half.
Right, isn't that amazing?
And the guy's coming
Incredible.
in. He's a little guy. He hits well. He plays good defense. Batting 5th for them. That's crazy.
I know. So it's always improbable. And to further your point, you have more of an improbable guy contributing there.
Yep.
Who's not hot? You will recognize all of these names. Pete Alonso batting 120 over his last 7. Starling Marte 158. Brandon Nimmo 167. And their DH JD Martinez only 130. So there are several guys. It's amazing when you look at the output they've had, and you have a lot of those big name guys who aren't doing what you expect them to do in the situation.
And I think too, the postseason brings a whole new set of challenges, right? And me and you've talked about this, Reed, with the Dodgers. The Braves had it last season, best record in baseball, and then it's snooze fest during postseason. That's something the Dodgers have dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think going through all that and talking about the Mets, those guys are all batting 150, 167 that you mentioned. But I will say that when they have somebody in running scores and runners in scoring position, that's when they do get the hit.
Yeah.
And that's what's made them. I mean, they have had clutch hit after clutch hit after clutch hit. I mean, Starlin Marte's been big, and nobody talks about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, they're hot right now.
They are.
Landmine Believer says what happens is the bye team comes in cold and loses game 1 and loses home field advantage, and they have used their ace where the wild card team still has theirs. Good point.
Yeah, it's definitely not a great format. It's not a perfect format.
No.
It is better than what it was from the one game, but there are still needs to be tweaked, and I'm hoping baseball will continue to do that.
Let's move on to today's game. So you've got ALDS, you've got Tigers leading Guardians 2-1. Like I said, 5:08 today. And it's been fun to watch this team. I think that a lot of people are kind of catching on to the Tigers, and then they're wanting to go far. Y'all's opinions on the Tigers so far at this point?
Fun is not the word I'd use for that series. I mean, those games have flown by the last two games. And I think that's like, and you kind of look at it, and you've had so much excitement on the Mets side and even this Dodgers-Padres series now. Nobody's talking about the Guardians and Tigers.
Yeah.
And for the Tigers to be 1 game away, I mean, it's pretty crazy. They were, at one point, 8 games under 500 during the season. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think the Guardians win tonight, but the Tigers and AJ Hinch, I mean, the guy's done a great job. You look at that lineup, it looks brutal on paper.
Yeah. So this is the second series in post-game history to feature a shutout in each of the first 3 games, which is crazy to think about. To your point, these games are flying by. No one's talking about it. That could be a good thing that no one's talking about the Tigers. But I do agree with you, Reed. I think that Cleveland will come back a little bit tonight, and we won't see, the clinch. But it is, when you look at to the pitching staff of the Tigers, I think it was Buster Olney that was talking about it, that most of these guys were on waivers. They're a scrappy group of guys, and I think that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I think that whole team.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, you do have an ace, and he's a stud.
Yeah.
Yes.
But outside of that, these guys are patching it together at the right time.
Yeah.
There's 7 teams still playing baseball. 3 of those 7 are from the AL Central.
Yeah.
And in talking to our very own Scott Forrester about the Tigers coming into this, he was someone who was not surprised by their success, having paying close attention all season long, of course, to that division. So he knew how hot the Tigers were and what they were capable of doing.
Forrester, can we get you on the mic for a second?
Hang on. Take him a second.
Hold on.
Look how quick Lionel is.
I mean,
that.
agile like a cat. Lionel is there.
What are your thoughts on the Detroit Tigers? I saw you in the chat with a little Go Tigers to start things off.
There is not a single pitcher in baseball that I'd rather face less than Skubal.
Yeah.
And as a White Sox fan, I've seen a lot of that guy. Lights out.
So are you pulling them for them to win the whole thing?
Yeah, which is weird being in a divisional team, but that team's been irrelevant for so long that that just doesn't bother me.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I kind of think that they're my team that I'm wanting to see through.
As long as Cleveland doesn't win it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So that's the one that you want
I can't stand them.
Okay, got it.
Interesting. Good to know. The other game being played today is Yankees-Royals at 7:08. What is your thoughts, Reed?
On paper, it's a great pitching matchup, but both pitchers have not been that solid in the postseason.
Yeah.
So you got Waka going for KC, and you got Garrett Cole going for the Yanks.
Yeah.
The Yanks are that top 3 lineup. I mean, they can start a game up 3-0, 3 batters in. I mean, and they haven't put it together really. I don't know. I think it's going to be a good pitching matchup. I see the Yankees pulling it out, but I like KC. I like they're kind of like the Tigers. They're kind of like the Guardians. They're scrappy. Bobby Witt Jr., absolutely stud. I mean, he might be a guy that if you had one player to start a team off with, he might be your guy.
Yeah.
But I don't see them beating the Yankees.
What do you feel like is the strength of the Royals?
They're scrappy. I mean,
Scrappy.
I just you look at it and they got Salvador Perez.
Which I was about to bring him up. That's crazy to think about, seeing him playing with this Royals team, knowing 10 years ago when the Royals were going to consecutive World Series, he was a part of that team.
Everything that Yadier Molina was about, and everybody loved him, and he was solid, and he just brought the intangibles. And it's the same thing with Salvador Perez.
Yep.
I mean, you watch him, and I mean, the guy still hits for power. He still gets the clutch hits. He does a great job with the pitching staff. Look at other guys. I mean, at the first of the year, Seth Lugo's been, around a couple times to different teams, but the guy's never been established like he is. And I think that is a direct reflection of Salvador Perez handling this pitching staff.
Yeah.
So
that team 10 years ago, also scrappers.
Big time.
They were a huge ABC baseball type team.
Well, everybody was pulling for them because they were fun to watch.
They were.
Yeah.
We're seeing a theme there with the scrappy teams. The big one, though, for you, Reed, Padres, Dodgers.
Yeah, and before you get into that, say the big one for Reed. Now I know there's usually East Coast bias and things like that. To me, this feels like the one that has the most national attention.
I would agree.
I know it's the most must-see for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something. I think having that natural rivalry between the two teams, that you look up and down both lineups, every player.
Exactly. That was my
and
point.
And so, even with and Buster Only on the next round today, doesn't look like, obviously my favorite Dodger, Freddie Freeman, is probably going to be playing in the next game. Hopefully he's back for the Dodgers. But, I mean, this has been really thrilling baseball.
It is. I mean, these two teams hate each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like almost the Red Sox Yankees with the Pedro Martinez and, slamming Don Zimmer down.
Yeah.
But as a Dodger fan, I mean, I cannot stand this team.
Right.
I mean, between Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis. I mean, the guys are just so obnoxious. And, and I was telling EG, I showed her that clip of Game 2 where Jerks and Profar robbed Mookie Betts and kind of messed with the fans, and that got some things started. And then Game 3, I don't know if you saw this, but Game 3, Betts hit the same exact shot to left field, and it tipped off the edge of his glove for a home run. And, I think that's what kind of got Game 2 started. It was that first inning on that. Mm-hmm. And it's just fireworks after fireworks. I mean, they hate each other. You see Machado and Jack Flaherty mouthing off, and you go read his lips. I'm surprised they didn't come to blows already.
Yeah.
So I think it's a ticking time bomb at some point.
It's good baseball to watch.
Machado, we got a rebirth of Manny being Manny for a new generation. Mm-hmm. So instead of Ramirez, it's Machado. Going back to Francisco Lindor, he hits that massive grand slam, and you see him just trot the bases in the most nonchalant, professional, low-key way possible. Yeah. And I say this as a Ronald Acuna Jr. fan. I get it. Yep. But can you imagine if that had been Machado?
Oh, dude. Yeah. I think I'd have to turn off the TV.
Yeah.
I mean, he is that frustrating. And I think part of it goes back to he played that half year with the Dodgers when they traded for him when Seager got hurt. And I saw in the postseason, you go back and look at it, he was a cheap player. Like, he kicked the first baseman's legs out at one point when he was running down the line, and it was so intentional. And then, he signs with the Padres, and his quote was, "Mark my words, the Padres will win a World Series before the Dodgers." Mm-hmm. And
stuff like that.
They started playing well, and they almost did. And, luckily 2020, the Dodgers win it. But he, you saw that in the other day. He threw the ball at the Dodgers dugout. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, what is going on?
Yeah, that was odd to me. He gets a lot of attention for that. The guy that strikes the most fear in me is Tatis.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And just scary to think what he's capable of doing.
I think going in last night, in the first 3 innings, he was like 7 of 8 in the series.
Ridiculous.
And 2 or 3 homers.
Yeah.
There's no let up in that lineup. It is a dangerous lineup.
I'll tell you, though, Jackson Merrill, he is going to be the best player in that lineup in 2 years. Yeah. I mean, that kid is a stud.
Yeah. How old is he? Do you know?
Oh, he's like 22, 23.
Yeah, I was going to say really young.
Well, I was telling EG, one of their first lineups in the series, they had 6 natural shortstops starting in their lineup.
That is such an incredible stat.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really process that and think about it.
Jackson Merrill, he's a shortstop they put in center field this year.
Now, my response to that was the Braves have 0.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
No, but I agree. I think that's really interesting to look at. But this series, it's just been good baseball. I think the point is that all of these players. Everyone has an experience with one of these guys.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's good.
So let's look at the teams that are left. You have very familiar, enormous, I would say the 2 biggest name brand teams in baseball, the New York Yankees and the LA Dodgers.
For sure.
They are stalwarts of the playoffs. They are standard bearers, and make no mistake about it. Those are the 2 teams that Major League Baseball wants to see and Fox wants to see in the World Series. Then you have Cleveland, who is familiar and is in his usual spot in the playoffs. And then you have 2 that you have not seen in a while in KC and Detroit. On the National League side, the New York Mets and the Padres have had World Series payrolls for a few seasons now. So these are ownership groups that have been all in, and both have been pretty snake bit by injuries, by bad luck, and by underperforming, especially the Mets.
Yeah.
But now you see both of these teams playing really, really good baseball at the same time. The money's there. The names are there. They've put it in. They're pretty complete teams.
They are.
But can they go all the way and do what they need to do?
It's hard to. I mean, to me, it's always about who's going to get hot. Like last year, who saw the Rangers winning the World Series?
Right.
Who saw the D-backs sweeping the Dodgers? I mean, so
nobody.
Right now, the scary thing is the Mets.
Yeah.
I mean, they look like that team is going to pull out a win every night.
They look like that house money type team, right?
I mean, so, and I know EG's pulling against the Mets, and I was telling her, I was like, the one team I think the Dodgers can beat, even with their pitching staff the way it is the Mets.
Yeah.
I think they match up really well with them.
I mean, I would rather see a Yankees-Dodgers. What about you?
No pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, you have segments of the audience that'll say, they're favored, and I don't want to watch that because that's what baseball wants. Baseball wants ratings, and those are the teams that'll give the highest ratings.
Exactly.
Let me ask you, Game 5, the Dodgers pitching staff, the way they're going to have to approach it.
Yeah.
They have three options, basically. It's trying to do another bullpen game, which, Yamamoto, which I love him. I think he's a great pitcher, but he has been awful this year versus the Padres. Like he has gotten smoked by them. Or Jack Flaherty, who got smoked in Game 2.
I mean, I think that the bullpen game paid off for you guys. When you look at the matchup of Yamamoto, it is nerve-wracking, obviously. Yep. Me personally, I think I would go another bullpen game.
I would go Yamamoto. And you're right, he's not pitched well against them.
I mean, my thing
I just
is,
feel like he's got it in him.
I want to go. I think I would want to go bullpen game and have a Yamamoto ready. Right?
Yeah.
And if it starts to struggle, bring him in the second inning or whatever.
Right.
But that's going to be interesting because and I don't think we'll know until like an hour before the game.
Okay. Yeah. I want to ask you about Dave Roberts.
Yep.
So for EG and I, we have think of the similarities here. We have a manager, Braves country, that is racked up a ton of division titles, has a World Series, is a consistent winner. Team is always in the playoffs. And I believe he's appreciated, but he's criticized quite a bit. Yep. And I don't believe that he is as beloved as maybe if you'd look at his record, you would think. Outside looking in, I feel the same thing with Dodger fans and Dave Roberts.
No, I think I totally agree with you. He's so by the book on matchups that like it's almost like he can't put his own feel into a game, and I think that's what's frustrating. I mean, I think it was last year in the postseason. They're come up late in the game, and they got a man on first and third, and they bring in a lefty, and you had God, who was it? It might have been Muncy, and he pinch hits, and the only righty on the bench is Austin Barnes, who's batting like 210, and he flies out. And I felt like that was the only chance they got. But that's what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years. It's so frustrating.
Right.
The Dodgers are always built for the regular season because they have so much depth, versatility. They can plug people in left and right.
Right. But
you get in the playoffs and you start doing this righty-lefty no matter what.
It's that analytics.
It is. And listen, and I'm a numbers guy. I think analytics are great. But at some point, you have to feel like this is my guy. He's clutch. Yeah. I'm gonna let him battle this.
Right. Go more of a feel, not necessarily numbers.
Pitch. I mean, I can sit there and tell you during the regular season, here's who they're about to bring in when they're about to bring in a relief pitcher because it's obvious every time who they're about to pinch hit for. That's what's frustrating. But I mean, the guy wins. He's a player's coach. He's got good energy, but you're right. I mean, he'll be on the hot seat. I don't think anything will happen, but I think there will be enough discussion to at least talk about.
One last question from me. I think we all feel that Buster's probably right about Freddie not playing in Game 5. Let's say the Dodgers are to win Game 5. Are you confident that Freddie Freeman's in the lineup for the Game 1 of the NLCS?
No. Okay. I mean, he made a great play to catch a high ball and it came down his ankle and all that. I mean, he stayed in and hit that next time, but did you see him trying to get to first base?
Yeah.
It wasn't great.
No. I mean, I just don't. I think that thing is going to be nagging. He might try to play through it. And he's a big part just from a team leader perspective.
Yeah.
But they are built with depth.
And they have a lot of team leaders.
They do, like. and they all seem like kind of the same guys. They mesh really well. Like the Braves team, I would always feel like they're a good team. They got good team chemistry, right? Yeah. And I feel that same way with the Dodgers.
I agree.
And like what I wanted to see was last night though. If Freddie Freeman was out, put Max Muncy at first. He's played it before, and then figure out who's at third. And hey, they put in Kike Hernandez, and you look at Kike Hernandez over his postseason career, he's pretty damn clutch.
Yes.
He's had that game where they knocked out the Cubs. He had 3 homers in that game. He had a couple big hits last night. He hit the ball really well on his outs. It's not going to be – I'd rather have Freddie Freeman, obviously, like everybody else would, but I don't think it's a killer right off the – and him being in that clubhouse is still going to help.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So what's your overall feel on the game for tomorrow?
I don't care what happens if the Dodgers are up like last night. If they're up 8-0, and like even in the eighth inning, I was like, I don't want them to score a run.
Yeah,
I don't want to give them any momentum whatsoever. Honestly, I think it's going to be tough for the Dodgers to win. I really do, because of the pitching matchup. Darvish, he pretty much smoked them in game 2. I mean, the Dodgers had one chance, bases loaded in the second inning, scored 1 run, had 1 out and lined into a double play, and that was their only threat the entire game. Darvish is going to be tough for him.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm hoping to get lucky.
We'll find out.
We will find out.
This was fun.
This was fun.
It's, you want to be in it and you want to be your team in it and everything, but when you have no dog in the hunt, you can just sit back and
relax.
Can I answer Greg's question?
Yeah.
Please do. Yeah.
So Greg's asking, why are the Dodgers so damn good in the regular season but choke in the postseason? It's because they have more depth than anybody else. They build with players that can play multiple positions. Mm-hmm. So when they have somebody who's hurt, they can rest players. They have somebody who's hurt, somebody can plug right in. They are always built for the regular season. The postseason is just a different game. I mean, you know, they're pulling starters a couple innings into it. Last night I was shocked they pulled Dylan Cease so early. And you see that happen all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen during the regular season like that. But the Dodgers are always built for the regular season.
I love it.
Brandon's comment about Dodgers fans since Gibson's home run in '88. That was right before my 10th birthday. One of the most memorable sports moments of my childhood. Is it the best moment in baseball history?
It's pretty dang close if it's not.
I mean, the build-up in it and the whole thing and the way it played out and the famous trot and the whole thing, I mean, that's pretty iconic.
I was 7 years old, and I remember watching it. I still get chills when I see the replay of it. But I was thinking last night, what if Freddie Freeman comes up in a situation like that? Because he's hobbling around just like Kirk Gibson was?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd love for it to be Freddie, too.
Yeah.
Favorite Dodgers player.
We might have to come back and preview whatever this World Series ends up being.
We've got to do some offseason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will.
There's going to be a lot going on for the Braves. There's going to be a lot going on. Having a discussion yesterday, friend of the show, Benny Rose, about, the Braves go after, what are they going to do at left? What are they going to do at short?
Yeah.
Are they going to go after another
Fried.
starter?
Yeah.
Where's Max going to go? So, we'll try to maybe get together, maybe preview a little World Series action, too.
I think so, because we have a chat that is involved. We got people tuning in. We love what we do, but we also love what we wear.
Yeah, we do.
I'm wearing Rowback right now.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Thank you.
Did you see Ryan Brown's Rowback today? He's got the different color collar with the shirt. I
He
love
just
that
walked
look.
through the control room and had it on.
Has he ever considered modeling?
Maybe.
Is there any male models from Sax, Alabama?
At Aliceville's Correctional.
That's true. Yeah, they got his poster up there, and he's probably wearing Rowback.
Probably.
But if he wants to save money
while modeling
Rowback, and you go to Rowback.com, you enter code PG20 at checkout. It's going to save you 20% on your entire order. And as you know, these mornings that we've had here in Central Alabama, it is lightweight hoodie season.
It is.
Reed, I think it's your favorite article of clothing.
Oh,
when
it is.
a certain time of the year hits, I can expect to see you in one of those every day.
I've got probably 6 or 7 different Rowback hoodies, and they will rotate all through the fall.
There you go.
Yeah.
Can't beat it.
All right, we will be back with a World Series preview, at least a couple more episodes, and then we're going to get into the offseason, what that means. We'll have a more regular schedule coming out for you guys soon, but as always, Pennant Grace family, thank you for tuning in. PG20 at checkout, and follow us at the Pennant Grace on social media.